Hey guys, it's Aman
And Christina
from Our Rich Journey. On today's video, we are going to be talking about socially responsible investing. This is our monthly stock portfolio update where we take you into our stock portfolio and we show you the performance of our investments. But today we are also going to be answering a big question that we've been getting a lot lately, and it is how can I invest in the stock market and invest in a way that aligns with my values? And so on today's video, we are going to talk to you about the different ways that you can do that. And we're also going to answer the question, is it profitable? Can you invest in a way that aligns with your moral values and still make a profit?
So if you're new to our channel is all about making money, saving money, and investing money on the road to financial independence. Aman and I pursued financial independence for 8 years. We reached it. We quit our jobs as federal government employees and we retired. So if you're interested in learning any of those things about saving, making, and investing money, make sure you subscribe to our channel. But like Aman said, in today's video, we are gonna open up our portfolio, we're gonna share the performance of our portfolio, and we're also gonna be talking about socially responsible investing. So we're gonna define what that is and talk about the different types. We're also gonna be talking about things you should know about before you invest, and we're gonna give you examples of specific funds that you can look into if you're interested in learning more about investing in these socially responsible companies. So let's start off with a definition of socially responsible investing. The idea is that you take into account your personal values and you make sure that your investments that you're making align with those personal values. So in this video, we're talking about socially responsible investing, but we're also going to be encompassing environmental, social, and governance investing and impact investing. They all have different types of aspects that they look at, but they all have a bit of overlap between the three of them. So first, we're going to talk specifically about socially responsible investing. Now, that type of investing involves investing in companies that make positive social impacts. So an example of this might be companies that demonstrate environmentally green practices, like they produce energy efficient products. Or it also means avoiding investing in companies, for example, that may produce tobacco products. So that was socially responsible investing. Now let's talk about the next form of investing, which is environmental, social, and governance investing. So that has 3 components. Now the first component is environmental. You're looking at companies and their environmental impacts. So you may be looking at companies that have low pollution, low waste, low water consumption. So there's also a social criteria to this type of investing. You're looking at how the company invests its money or how it spends its money. Does it contribute to different causes that align with your moral values? So for the governance component, you're really looking at how the company runs itself. Is it transparent about the way it runs its business? Does it have fair practices? Does it have political contributions that don't align with your moral values or your political values? These are all things that you're going to be looking at.
So now let's talk about the last form of investing that aligns with your moral values, and it is impact investing. With this type of investing, you're hoping your investment makes a direct impact on a particular cause that you believe strongly in. So maybe you are investing in a company that is going to plant a number of trees, or you're investing in companies that will make a direct contribution to an educational foundation that you believe in. The idea is that you are going to invest in a company that is going to make a direct impact on something that you believe in strongly. So the idea between these 3 forms of investing is that as an investor, you are using your money to be heard. And if enough of you are investing in this form, the companies that you are investing in should take your ethics or your values into account when they're making decisions about running the company.
So there are so many different types of values that people can have and people can invest in based on those values. You can have religious values, political values, moral values, any type of value that you want to align with your investment. So what we want to talk about now are things that you should be aware of before you invest in these types of companies. And the first thing is understanding how you make an impact when you make your investments. So with impact, by refusing to invest in particular companies that don't align with your personal values, you are very rarely actually making a direct impact on that company. And I say this because as an investor, when you purchase a stock, the money goes to the seller of the stock, and that seller is an individual. It's not the company. So unless a company is issuing new stocks, like at the IPO stage, for example, you're not directly impacting a company by not investing in it. And this is important because at the IPO stage, when they open up their shares to be sold, the company directly gets that money. But beyond that stage, if they're not selling more shares, that exchange of money is only happening between individual investors. So you're not making a direct impact, but there are secondary impacts, and those impacts can be significant. The first one is at the management level. A lot of management owns shares of the company that they work in. And so by not investing in a particular company, you can cause the shares or the price of those shares to go down. This is impacting management's portfolio. And management could decide to make changes based off of your decision not to invest in their company.
The other way that you can impact a company by not investing in them is that executive pay is connected to share price in many cases. So if you choose not to invest in a company and the share price falls, then that means that those executives may not get their bonus, and that in turn may affect change.
Another thing is that companies can decide to sell additional shares even after the IPO stage to raise additional funds. Now, if their stock price is low, it means that they have to sell even more shares in order to raise the funds that they need. And by doing this, they could impact the price of their shares even more because they're putting out too much supply of shares in their company. So that can impact the company overall.
So by you choosing not to invest in a company, one big thing that could happen is the overall sentiment for the company could become negative.
And this could result in incredibly bad press, which is terrible for companies, and it's a great way to make companies change. So that's the difference between directly and indirectly impacting a company, and that's something that you should know. Another thing that you should know about socially responsible investing is that many companies say that they're socially responsible or that they're a socially responsible company when they really aren't. There is a lot of money that gets put into socially responsible investing, and advertisers are very aware of this. So companies may claim to do things that they don't necessarily do, or they're not completely upfront and transparent in what they're claiming.
And I know this doesn't come as a surprise to many of you out there. Because companies know that this is a marketing strategy, they will say that they do these things, but they're only meeting the bare minimum for doing these things. They will say they are saving the world, and maybe they're just picking up trash around their building. You have to be able to genuinely evaluate whether or not a company is keeping its promises.
And the last thing to consider when you're making socially responsible investments is to know that typically these types of investments are going to have higher fees, especially if you're investing in an ETF. Now, index funds, there are index funds available, and we're actually going to talk about 2 of the index funds that we think you can research and learn more about. But ETFs, when they're picking and selecting specific types of investments to put into that ETF, there's more management costs, and so typically there are higher fees. But that does not mean that you can't have a positive return with these types of investments, and we're going to get into that also.
So let's talk about actually picking your socially responsible investments. We're going to talk about index funds, ETFs, and individual stocks.
So let's start with individual stocks, and we want to talk about the pros of investing in individual stocks. And the number one pro is that you can actually pick the stock or the company, do the research behind the company, and really understand if that specific company aligns with your values. When you're investing in an index fund or an ETF, you have to invest in all the companies within that fund. And you may find that some of those companies align with your values, but there are a couple that may not. And by investing in individual companies, you can pick only those companies that are 100% aligned with your values.
But we must talk about the cons of investing in individual stocks. We talk about this all the time, and when you are investing in individual stocks, you take on more risk because you are putting more of your money into one company. And the fate of your money all depends on the fate of that company. But there are other ways to invest socially when it comes to investing in index funds and ETFs.
So let's start with an index fund with Vanguard. This index fund is called VFTAX, and it tracks the FTSE for Good US Select Index. This is actually an index fund, and it's made up of large and mid-cap stocks. It's screened for certain environmental, social, and corporate governance criteria. It excludes certain investments in companies like the adult entertainment, alcohol, tobacco, weapons, fossil fuels, gambling, and nuclear power industries. This Vanguard Index Fund was created in 2019 and it's had a 22.82% return since then. Its expense ratio is 0.14%. So the next index fund is with Fidelity. It's called FITLX. This one tracks the USA ESG Index. This represents the performance of stocks of large to mid-cap US companies with high environmental, social, and governance performance relative to their sector peers. This Fidelity Index Fund was created in 2018 and it's had a 15.15% return since then. Its expense ratio is 0.11%.
So if you're questioning whether or not you can get good returns by investing in socially responsible funds, these are two funds that you should take a look at. You should always do your own research. We are never telling you to go invest in anything. You always invest in what you feel comfortable with. But if you look at both of these have been very good returns and they have invested in socially responsible companies.
And the last one we want to talk about is actually an ETF. The ticker is SHE, S-H-E. It invests in US companies that demonstrate greater gender diversity within their senior leadership compared to other firms in their sector. This ETF was created in 2017. It had an 11.51% 3-year return, and it's up 1.1% year to date. The expense ratio for this ETF is 0.20%.
So those are just a couple of different ways to invest in socially responsible companies. There are other ways to invest in these types of companies, so you should always go and do your research. And of course, you can always let your dollars do the talking by choosing not to buy certain products and only servicing businesses and companies that align with your values. And you can always donate money directly to the causes that you believe in. We do this personally, and this is the way that we like to use our money. But that is enough about socially responsible investing. I know you guys are excited to see the performance of our stock portfolio. So without further ado, let's get into the performance of our stock portfolio for this month.
So let's start with the first index fund, which is the Fidelity Zero Total Stock Market Index Fund, FZROX. On January 15th, we invested $720 and bought 52.747 shares at $13.65 each. We now own a total of 978.624 shares at an average price of $10.58 per share. Our total amount invested is $10,357.32. The current value as of February 4th is $13,573.51, making this a total gain of $3,216.19 or 31.05%. Next is the Fidelity Zero International Index Fund, FZILX. On January 15th, we invested $240 and bought 20.530 shares at $11.69 each. We now own a total of 378.122 shares at an average price of $9.16 per share. Our total amount invested is $3,461.82. The current value as of February 4th is $4,442.93, making this a total gain of $981.11 or 28.34%. And our last index fund is Fidelity Real Estate Index Fund, FSRNX. On January 15th, we invested $240 and bought 16.563 shares at $14.49 each. We now own a total of 272.757 shares at an average price of $12.82 per share. Our total amount invested is $3,497.80. The current value as of February 4th is $4,069.53, making this a total gain of $571.73 or 16.34%. Overall, our portfolio as of February 4th is valued at $22,085.97. That's up $4,769.03 or 27.54%.
So that is our stock portfolio for this month. If you guys have questions, topics that you want us to address in upcoming videos in this investment series, please let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Your questions drive the content in this series and throughout our channel. So if you like this series and our YouTube channel, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join the journey.